Get your vermiculture startup set for free.
Vermiculturalists and people in the worm casting industry, they don't want you to know that it's this easy. I'm going to show you worm farming, worm wrangling. Okay.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Well, we discovered this natural phenomenon when our neighbor gave us several bags of maple leaves in black plastic garbage bags, and he gave us like 15 bags, and so we had them in our front yard, and eventually we didn't use all of them, and the snow came and they stayed in their bags in our front yard the entire winter and the entire spring. But there was one day in the spring where it had rained a lot, and I came outside to get some leaves to put into my experiments for seedlings, making my own dirt and whatnot, and I opened the bag and discovered that it wasn't soaked. It was damp, but it wasn't soaked. It was actually not really leaves anymore, it was more dirt, and there were a ton of worms in it. And also when I moved the bags, underneath the bags, there were lots of worms just disappearing under the soil. And so what we realized was the plastic bag was protecting like this entire pile of leaves from the sun, from the rain, and from birds. And then there were just naturally poked holes in the bottom that they were coming up through. And so it was just really cool because we didn't have to buy any of those worms and didn't have to make anything fancy, and they just found this spot and they showed me that they really like areas like that. So, you know, I've seen people build worm towers out of styrofoam. I've seen them build them out of wood, but
You can spend a lot of money
and they spend a lot of money. The simplest is a plastic bag of leaves with some holes in the bottom and then covered in more leaves so that it's not exposed to sunlight. They need some sort of barrier from the rain and from predators, and they need a food source. The cool thing about worms is if you build it, they will come, and you only need one or two, really, and then so after a bit of time you're going to have a bunch of worms. So there's several methods of building a worm factory. We got to the La Villa Riviera apartment complex site and found this lovely pile of cinder blocks and decided to show you guys how to build a worm factory or a worm castle, whatever you want to call it, worm cast castle, out of cinder blocks. The cinder blocks are perfect because they have something called thermal mass associated with the rock. This means that even though, so the thermal mass we can use to our advantage by building in the shade, which means it will not heat up quite as fast in the hot summer day, and the interior will stay cooler than the outside, and then because it's only shady, because it's in the shade of a tree, in winter, the leaves will be gone and it'll be exposed to a little bit more sunlight. The biology of the worms will also create heat with their worm castings and their body movements and all that. Alright, so we've got the base. We're going to build it up a little higher. We're going to make it 2 cinder blocks tall.
We got the ground exposed. Okay, what Margaret's done here is she's made sure that the ground is completely exposed at the bottom, and this is for the purpose of invitation. There's no leaf litter or debris that the worms have to try to come up through. So whatever we put in there will the scent and the sugar scent will all go down on the ground and will attract them.
There should be enough water around the area that it's not gonna be a problem.
Okay, now this is a double channel or a double chimney worm factory, worm castle. And just making sure that the holes are nice and lined up evenly.
Spiders.
So,
Okay.
and
then,
as Margaret said, this is all stuff that we just found laying here. We didn't prop this here or set this here. We just found this here, and the guy said that it was going to be taken away in garbage.
Yeah, I was going to show you guys the plastic bag method, but this is way cooler.
This is way cooler. So,
literally, boom, chap. Okay, so we're going to add these for thermal mass.
kind of an insulative barrier.
Insulative, shady barrier.
Just more stuff in the way.
So I put these over here. Right. Where do we want them? We could probably put this behind it too.
Yeah, I'm thinking set this one somewhere in the neighborhood of plugging up this, or trying to plug up this hole.
Oh yeah. So that,
Now, the thing about this tower that Margaret mentioned before we were filming is
this is really a bug
this
control.
lower base here you can let wind up be covered with leaf litter and detritus, and it'll actually be beneficial for the lower part of the worm tower, for insulative purposes. And you said that one.
I'm gonna set it behind.
You set it behind. Okay, well, why don't you set it behind? And what was that you said, Margaret?
We've also been talking about the potential of fiber creating all this together for more thermal mass. And once it's full, it's a permanent structure. You plant right into it. You can keep adding worm food. You know, you can plant something that's going to cover the ground enough that it'll keep it dry, so you don't need this part anymore. I mean, that would look pretty cool. Alright, so I'm going to start filling it up. I have a lot of leaves available to me, and I've got some banana peels that I just know the worms are going to like.
All right.
Probably a lot of other bugs.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
It's a long process. You build it up. You put some stuff in, and it shrinks down. So here's my banana peels covered in some dry leaves.
Good old worm food. What do you call this, Margaret?
And once you have built it up,
What do you?
You're on your way to becoming a free-range worm wrangler. And so stay tuned.
See if we actually catch anything.
Yeah, I think we'll catch some worms. It's like, the thing about an urban environment is there's a lot of variety in the environments around you. So it's very possible that we've got some really healthy ecosystems mixed in with some unhealthy ones. And, anyway, I think it'll be easy for the worms to find us. Yeah. You only need just a few. Stick in there. Pick it up. We're closing it up, and we'll check back on you next week. Love it. It looks just like
It looks like a little bench.
Hey, it's a bench! Second function. A stacked function.
Stacked function.
Got the worm bench.
Madge invented the
Quadruple.
worm bench. This is Mr. Worm. This is Mr. Worm Bench.